Here we are. It's Monday. Welcome
Yes.
to another episode of Force for Growth Live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Woo, how was everybody's weekend?
Relaxing.
Mine was relaxing too.
It was.
It was good.
Was it relaxing and productive or just relaxing?
Both.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
was a little bit of both.
That's always good when we get stuff done over the weekend, isn't it?
Yes. How was your weekend?
It was good. I chilled out. I cleaned up my office a little bit, got it organized, and fixed up some things. And yeah, it was good. It was good.
Good.
It was uneventful, but that's okay. I like it like that.
Yes. Sometimes
Woo.
that's just what we need.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, Courtney.
Okay. Hey guys. So before we get started, you should like and share. And if you share with hashtag Force for Growth, we can. We're going through hashtag Force for Growth. And basically, if you just share it and use that hashtag, it's an entry to win the Ultimate Relationship Program that Ricardo is holding up right now by Tony and Sage, which is a $200 value, a phenomenal program. And if you are listening on Apple, if you share with us a feedback and leave us a review, that is how you get entered. So share before we get started. It's a great word this week. And okay, so before I get started on our word of the week, I want to tell you a little bit more about it. We select our word of the week each Monday on our 6 a.m. calls by pulling a stick by Do 52 that is stamped with a verb. And Do 52 is a simple but powerful toolkit designed by House of Shine to prompt us weekly to do things and open our minds up to new ideas. So our word of the week this week is perform.
Yes.
Which is just awesome. It's like the universe knows we're getting closer to the end of the year and it needs more powerful words. So, because keep in mind, we draw these randomly. Yeah. So,
Very randomly.
yes.
So the definition of perform is to carry out, accomplish, or fulfill an action, task, or function, work, function, or do something to a specified standard, present as in a form of entertainment to an audience, entertain an audience typically by acting, singing, or dancing on stage.
Yes. How are you performing?
For you guys,
A lot.
How are you performing?
it brought up a
Yes.
lot on our call this morning, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It sure did. I love, it was John that brought up preparation. One of the first things he said was, how do you prepare? And I think he even used the word agile, talking about musician and creativity. But how are you preparing and are you ready to perform?
Are you performing to your best standard?
Oh, that was a good one this morning.
Are you performing to the highest possible level that you are capable of performing?
And then we talked about whose standard are you performing?
Yes.
Yes.
Your own standard, somebody else's standard, or somebody else's standard that you perceive that they have for you.
Mm-hmm. Which we drew the conclusion that that's typically the source of our greatest insecurities in life, is right there in that zone of, oh, I have to do it this way. But nobody really said that. You just made that up in your head.
You did. Because we set these standards based on what other people, these people expect me to do this. These people expect me to do that, which is not necessarily a bad thing because that's why the tribe mentality is so strong. Because when we join this a tribe of high achievers, we immediately want to fit in. We immediately see what they're doing, and it makes us want to be like that.
Like Jim Rohn says, you are an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And that's how that works. But it can also work against you because of these perceived notions that people expect a certain level of performance from you that you are incapable of delivering or unwilling to deliver it.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you even willing to perform? You know, that's a question that you don't have to, just because everyone else is doing something, you don't have to do it too. You can, maybe you should, maybe it's something you should work up to do and you should be doing better. But what if it's not and it's something you're just spending your wills and all of your energy getting done, but it's not even something you're called to do.
I only have to suspect that, Michelle, you see this a lot in the health area.
Yes.
These expectations that we pick up from Facebook, from social media on how we're supposed to look, not even how we're supposed to feel health-wise, but how are we supposed to look to present and represent what health means.
Yes. And I like to focus more on what we call non-scale victories because those are so much more important. And the scale is just a measurement tool. So, but I have clients sometimes that their weight loss may not show on the scale, but it shows in their inches. They're losing inches, and then their energy levels. Those are really the key things that I think are important, more so than the scale. The scale's important. It's an important measurement tool, but there's so much more to life than that. So, but
Which
yeah,
brings us to the point. How do you measure performance? How do you measure performance? Does it have to be visible? Like your body starts to look great? Or could it be as simply as I feel better? Is that a measure for performance?
I think
Talk
how
to
you
me.
feel is so much more important, and everything else flows from that. So if you feel good, if you have energy, it all just flows from that. That's, in my opinion, the most important.
That is, but why do we focus on the visual? It seems that we are all very visual oriented on how does it look? How do I look?
Yeah,
How does
Instant
this appear?
gratification society.
It really is.
Yeah, we're the
others.
society of instant gratification, which, yeah, you can speak more to that, Michelle. I'm sure you see it.
Well, I was just going to say, just like going back to what you were talking about earlier, Ricardo is performing to other people's standards. So there's pressure from society, or at least perceived pressure in our minds from society to look a certain way. And I don't think it's healthy.
It's perceived pressure.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's a standard, and then sometimes it's the far more toxic part of expectation.
Which, so I wrote down two, kind of towards the end of our call, I wrote down two questions just to ask yourself or to, so these are notes for myself, but so one is, how does that feel? And two, is that true? Just kind of regulator questions when you are caught up in expectation, when you are caught up, because some of that might still be true. You need to perform at this level to get this done, However, you need something to bring you back to neutral where you can analyze it, be where your feet are. Okay. It's what Tony Robbins says, see things as they are, not worse than they are. I think he attributes that trait as a good leader. A great leader am I getting that right? A great leader sees things as they are, not worse than they are.
Yes.
And just we as humans naturally will find 100 things wrong with the situation and ourselves before we will find one thing to give ourselves credit for. And so one that honestly, we were putting Ricardo in the hot seat this morning, but that it reminded me of, and that's when I wrote down these questions, was listening to everybody kind of go at you. And I was like, okay, one thing you asked me, one thing Michelle's really good at, discernment, is how does that make me feel? How does that thought make me feel? And you have to be healthy. You have to be in tune, aware. You need to be where your feet are to hear the answer, and because we almost get on this average of just living a crappy life, crappy emotions, just low vibration life. Let's call it that, where if you can stop and just regulate yourself. But the first one is, how does that make me feel? And then the second is that true? Now that's a Byron Katie reference that Ricardo uses a lot with me. So it just shows that, like, hey, we're all not perfect, but like that's a regular later question to me is, how does that make me feel? Is that true? And then second part, is that absolutely true? Now it's a 4-part question. It's Byron Katie. Look into the work because it's amazing. And I'm really not giving it justice right now by stumbling through it. But those are my 2 regulator questions. And that can get you back to just an accurate perception on how you're performing. You should be.
I like how you said that. An accurate perception of how you're performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't need to give out all feedback. It's not like I feel like a lot of people go way too far into this, like, I'm just going to love myself where I am. I'm just going to love myself for how I am. Yes. Yes. Okay. Let me finish because I am going to hand it over to you. So deep breath, sir. Okay. So there is some of that. Like, if you don't love yourself at all, you need to spend time marinating in these feelings. But ergo, where I've transitioned lately or struggling, and you have to do something with that energy. You need to move it into something, morph it into something, and take the next step. Go. Okay, Ricardo, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. My vein popped up here when you said
All the
that.
pain pop.
Like I felt like it was gonna pop out of my head. That's why I'm rubbing my head to soothe it back down, because you guys don't want to see the ugly vein popping out of
We
my
want to
head.
see it.
No, it's frustrating. While there is an aspect to self-love, you do have to appreciate yourself and you do have to love yourself. I'm not going to take anything or diminish that in any way possible, but also stop being a baby, man. It's okay to push yourself a little bit. It's okay to push yourself a little bit more. It's okay to push yourself a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
The defining thing that comes down from that is, are you able to accept the outcome from pushing yourself? Or do you beat yourself up because you push yourself at 110% and you fall short of your goal, and then you go and whine in the corner and cry because I tried so hard. I tried so hard. No. Understand that you pushed yourself the most that you could. You did the best that you could, and still be okay at that level, even if it doesn't work out the way that you thought that it would.
It's all feedback.
You move
It's
on.
just feedback.
You move on. Think about this. If you're a runner, I know, Michelle, you ran a little bit, right? You started running a while back. I'm not sure. Are you still running, by the way?
I'm not running right now. It's actually been in my head to start back because I miss it.
There you go. So I need to start back with the running too, because I was running on the treadmill and getting good over there on the treadmill. However, one of the things that I realized was, whenever I started running, I would run at a certain level. I would perform at a certain level, if you will. Now, if I was going to improve, do I perform at the same level that I've been performing at, or do I push myself just a little bit more?
You got to push yourself.
It sounds very simplistic when you think about it. If I continue performing at the level that I perform at, am I going to perform any better?
No.
No.
And that's the exact point. That's why it's hard to do better. That's the lesson. Like, it's actually pretty simple. But
Yes.
it's not easy. No one ever said it was easy. I said it was simple. Okay.
The thing is, to improve is you only that 1% or 2%, like Tony says, just 2% better. Because if you just slight improvements, the compound effect over time is going to propel you so much further than if you just stay.
Yes. And it was so easy. It's so easy on the treadmill because you can go from 3 to 3.1 for 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to stay at 3.1 for 1 minute. Now I'm going to stay at 3.1 for 2 minutes, and so on and so on. And then 3.2, 3.3, 3.4 for as long as you can, and just increasing it, just like Jessie did with her walking. But you have to increase that performance. You have to push yourself out of that comfort zone. Does it suck? Yeah. Does it hurt? Yes. Could it be unbelievably painful? For sure. But how you react to that, and how you process that, and how you persevere through that is what's going to make the difference.
Then I think it's important, the discussion we had about Sebastian this morning, and I brought a little bit in of my daughter, Leslie. So you have to celebrate those little wins, because when we are performing well, we're excited, we get momentum, it's all going, and then bam, one thing happens that causes our performance to decline, or we perform unwell in a certain situation. And that we have a tendency to let that overshadow all the good. And so that discussion we had this morning, I think it's awesome with kids to do what Jessie did with Sebastian. And Ricardo, you can explain that better, but really let them focus on their wins. I've been following Dr. Andrew Huberman, who is a neuroscientist, and he is the bomb. And he talks about getting a dopamine hit. And Stacy talked about it on our podcast a couple of weeks ago too. That dopamine hit creates that space in your brain to keep going, to not quit. And it's important. And you have to celebrate those small wins and not let them overshadow, not let a negative situation overshadow like a week's worth of awesomeness.
That is true. Then that's it. You summarized it great.
Yeah.
You have to look at the small wins.
Yeah.
And what Jessie did, just to explain, is she asked her, well, Ricardo's son as well, but Jessie and their son Sebastian went on a walk, and basically she just asked him to tell her everything he did good that week before. Where did you do great at? What did you this? And just, I can hear it in Jessie's voice. I listened so hard. I participated so hard. But, and that's back to, it's easy to pick out everything you did wrong. Whereas if you can just reframe it, and, Jessie said it took about an hour, but basically after that hour, he was charged. He was so proud of himself. And let's see. Jessie says, yes, Michelle, when you feel awesome about yourself, you push yourself further and harder. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the quote I wanted to bring up was Sarah Blakely. What have you failed at today? And she used to tell a story about sitting down at the dinner table with her dad, but the entire family, but her dad would, with a chipper smile on his face, would be like, what did you fail at today? What did you give a try? What did you give a go? What did you try out? And the power of teaching a child, one, failure is not a bad thing. Entire other conversation we spent hours talking about, but failure is not a bad thing. Failure is actually every other step on the journey. So like when you set out on a goal, guess what? A handful of those steps are going to be falling on your face, picking yourself back up. Okay, well, how can I do this time so when I fall again, this doesn't break? It literally is building it piece by piece. And so it's actually very silly that we assume instant gratification culture that we can have it tomorrow. It's like a lemon tree. Okay. So if I give you a lemon seed and I say, hey, give it water, give it, a place to live, give it sunlight, give it this and the basic components, but I forget to tell you it has time. It takes time. But you dig up that seed one day after planting it and you're like, Courtney, you told me I'd have a lemon tree. Okay. Yeah. But, and the other ironic thing I love to bring up about the lemon seed example is that lemon seed has the capability to grow to be the giant, most giant, largest lemon tree in the entire world. And it doesn't need your advice, doesn't need a college education. It doesn't need anything other than that limitless resource box it has. Boom. Okay. So you have an unlimited resource box too. But if you're so cluttered, you'll never be able to hear it. And if you think everything you've ever not done perfectly is a failure, you're never going to hear it. So I just, with love, say you're missing the point.
Let's go to the comments real quick. Courtney and Michelle.
Let's see. I'm gonna let Margot, or I'm gonna let Michelle take this one. Good morning, Margot.
Hi, Margot. Margot says, I saw something this morning about choose your hard. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so important. Choose your hard. And then sometimes you can't choose your hard. Yeah. Sometimes your hard is chosen for you. As you can see right here in this image, you have two ladders. One has very easy little steps. The other one, the steps are a little bit further apart, but they both lead to the same road.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are going to have it easier than you. It's just the way it is. Yeah. It's just the way that it is. But that doesn't mean you still can't get there. That doesn't mean that you still don't work hard to get there. Will it be easier for some people? Of course. Will it be harder for some people? Yes. I don't know which ladder you're on, but I'll guarantee you, in some areas of your life, you're going to have it easier than some other people. And in some areas of your life, you're going to have it harder than some people.
Yep.
It's just the way that it is.
And at the worst, there are still people out there that would kill for your worst day. So that just a gratitude practice every morning shapes your entire life. We can't drill that home enough.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about this picture, Michelle?
I see the baby steps. That's what I see in it. So if you just keep taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other, and just baby step your way, eventually you're going to get there. Or like Margot said, choose your hard. You can make it hard and you can have to take these giant leaps to try to get there. But you're going to get there so much faster if you'll just take one step at a time, baby steps.
I love
Yeah.
that because I
And
missed that. Like this dude with the hard ladder, he can go over to the easy ladder.
Mhm.
what I also picked up on is who's to say the guy with the easy ladder ends there? We can't see it goes up into the clouds. So that's an assumption to think that his ladder actually ends there, which what if it's only 10, 11, 12 hard giant steps, but it can be thousands of baby steps, So that's kind of where I saw is who's to say that's equal? That's our assumption. That's our expectation we're laying on it, which probably if it is like I'm assuming, or maybe that ladder keeps going, you're up a creek without a paddle. You're exhausted thinking, oh, I've finished. But you couldn't even see the next step. That was just an assumption. So, oh, yeah, just how we look at things before we get started just could make or break it completely.
I love that, guys. We all three of us had different perceptions about this picture. I love that. And, man, you guys have just broadened my horizon. Y'all broadened my mind on this one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For
Thank
those
you.
on the audio version, this is a picture with two ladders, steps really close together and steps further apart. I'll post a link to this picture in the comment section below.
I want to bring that back to perform and expectations and perception. So when you asked earlier, Ricardo, are we performing to our standards or are we performing to what we think are someone else's standards? And I think that's something that we do often is we push ourselves to perform what we think someone else expects. And one of the things we talked about this morning that I think is so important is setting boundaries. So you can set those expectations as long as you're clear and concise and you set those boundaries, then you know exactly what other people expect. But if you're just constantly guessing and you're pushing yourself to perform based on what you think someone else is expecting, one, that goes back to another whole discussion of other people's opinions, but also assumptions get you nowhere. Just set clear cut boundaries on what other people can expect you to perform.
This is a big one because do we gauge our performance against what we see on social media? Do we gauge our performance of how our life is performing based on social media, based on someone else's best of the best?
That's
social
exactly
media,
like
social
why I
media is
say
like a
don't do
highlight
it
reel.
anymore.
Social media is like a highlight reel. The
Nobody's
majority
going
of
to post
people,
their junk.
no one's going to post. It's like the greatest hits. I'm guilty of that. It's like, man, you go to my social media, it's the greatest hits of Ricardo.
Yeah, I went to a rachelhallsrise conference last July, and not this past, but a year and a half ago. And one of the most powerful things that I experienced that was there, and it's a room full of 8,000 women, and they pass around this piece of paper that's got all of these struggles. Like, I suffer from anxiety. I have been physically abused, and all this long list of things. And you write down, you check off the things that are applicable to your life. Then you fold it up and you pass it all around to where it ends up in some random person's hands. And then they go through and read each item. And then you stand up for your sister. If whoever's paper you have, which you don't know, if that's checked off on there. And it is incredible to look around and see thousands of people that suffer from the same thing that you suffer from. Like I have suffered from anxiety in the past. That's a small one compared to a lot of the things that were on that paper. But to look around and see the majority of the people surrounding you, you're not alone. And so we have that tendency to think we're the only ones or we're on an island and we have to perform because on social media we see someone else's highlight reel, but those people have struggles too. And I think it's important to put our struggles out there and be vulnerable and authentic.
Oh,
I think that's the true ticket to actually healing it. Maybe I'm just talking about me, but the more comfortable I get with talking to somebody and telling them my story, it's identical. The healing goes up, my willingness to be vulnerable, and my story's still forming, so I'm still figuring that out. But I'm learning that plugs in, a level of healing that now I can see this and go above that, and then, more things hit. I'm pretty sure I'm human. I'm never going to stop having breakthroughs. But, it's broadening our, thank you, Michelle, because I kind of feel like I can't do justice to that. But just if we only knew what others are hiding, you wouldn't criticize anyone for the rest of your life for a split second.
Yeah.
And
it's just, there's a reason we do it. And it's a survival mechanism. So just breathe, be where your feet are, go.
And vulnerability is not a performance. I want to make sure that, to add to Michelle's point and Courtney's point that they pointed out. Okay. Either way, vulnerability is not a performance.
It's real.
It's real. It's real. You can't sit there and post, I'm going to be vulnerable today. It doesn't work. The fact that you have to tell someone that you're being vulnerable totally negates the vulnerability.
It shows it's coming from an insecure spot where you still think you need to put on a mask for the world. And maybe you think you still do. You don't. You don't. Whatever anyone's telling you, you don't need to wear a mask for anyone else, period. But it's a new level of taking off another layer. And that's scary. It's terrifying.
It is. And you don't have to tell people that you're being vulnerable. People can see the vulnerability.
Yeah.
They experience the vulnerability. They feel the vulnerability. It's not something like, hey guys, we're going to be vulnerable today on the Force for Girls show. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You just be vulnerable. Let's see here. I see Michelle looking at the comments. Go ahead, Michelle.
So Susan says, our stories are always forming. Every day means growth. Yes.
Every day.
Yes. Thank you for your vulnerability, Susan, and just taking us along for your last ride too. Yeah.
Every day is vulnerability. Real quick, one of the things that we have to talk about performing, that it has to kind of be brought up. Maybe we can wrap it up here. We're talking a lot of good points about performing and performance. Don't perform for people. One of the things that I deal with, that I struggled with in the past, and I still struggle with from time to time, is the idea that I have to perform for somebody. The idea that I have to put on a performance for somebody. The idea that I always have to be, quote unquote, on for somebody, for people, for whoever, for this person, for that person, for my family, for Jesse, for Sebastian, that I have to be on. I don't always have to be on. I don't always have to be on. I don't always have to be like, no, it's okay. It's okay if I'm not on all the time. It's okay. It's okay if you're not on all the time. You don't always have to put on this performance. You don't always have to put on this show for people. You don't always have to be the person that's on all the time. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I know that personally. It's freaking exhausting to think that you have to perform and be on 24/7.
I would exchange exhausting because exhausting is still like working towards something. I'd say it's wasted energy. It's burned energy. It's not just exhaustion. It's a deeper loss of beautiful energy that you could have channeled to something.
I like how Jesse says, correct, this isn't the Ricardo show. Because that's how I used to think. We're not talking about the podcast. We're talking about life. Life is the Ricardo show. The whole world revolves around me. No. I have to dial back that ego. Dial it back. Dial it back. And it's the same thing with, I'm the only one who has ever experienced heartbreak. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not the only person in the world that has experienced this experience before.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's you see where you see the insecurities. Jesse said, learn to perform for yourself, which I believe she said that during Michelle talking. So I don't know if you've said it, Michelle, but just that, yes, perform for yourself.
Go ahead, Courtney, finish your thought.
I lost my thought. I'm feeling all lovey-dovey now and I forgot. So I'm trying to be graceful, but.
Oh, and then I call you out. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you think, Michelle? Thoughts on performing?
I do think that in line with what you're saying, Dr. Joe mentioned this morning, talks about the gap. So when we're trying to perform at perform in a way that is not our true, authentic selves. Like you said, it's exhausting, or Courtney said it's wasted energy. It is. It's until you are accept who you are for you, like the real you, until you do that, you're just fighting an uphill battle. So perform according to who you truly are inside and not to who you think everybody thinks you should be. Because when you start to do that, that's something that I've kind of grown into in the last couple of years, and I'm not there and probably will never be there because it's a constant, growth, a constant growing into that. But I love myself and I never did. For 47 years of my life, I didn't. And now I do. And I feel like I have something to contribute to this world. And so I have confidence now to be who I am. And I still struggle sometimes with other people's opinions and all of that, but just be you and accept you and love you and learn to do that. And it just makes life so much sweeter. And it makes you better for everyone else too.
Yes. And that plays into so thank you. I remembered my last thought, which credit to Jesse this morning. You were talking when I wrote this down, but, or I think Tamara said it, but we aren't taught who we are anymore. We aren't taught who we are from the get-go when we're children. However, we are taught to fit in from day one. So if you don't know, that's where I struggled, was finding my authentic self. And to quick snippet on a long conversation, but like, if you don't know who you authentically are, that's okay. It's all right. Get to know it. Get to know her. Get to know him. But it's just an interesting observation that we're always taught to fit in. We're never taught who we really are unless we really take that in our own hands. And that's where it plays into later in life. People have, revelations or something, or just like Michelle was saying, when you go through this breakthrough, you're better for your family. You're better for the world. You're better for whatever. But if we can speed that up to you to get to the point where you're like, oh, it's okay to be me. It'll solve a lot of your insecurities. It'll solve a lot of your, I don't feel like I'm in the right career, because you're probably not, but until you really know who you are, and it's okay. It's okay. Whatever step you're in, it's okay. Like, no one said you have to have it figured out by insert whatever age you are.
So much with this word.
Margot makes an excellent point, and let other people be themselves too. Yes.
It gives them permission to be them as well.
Accept yourself and accept others. It's not a performance.
Where you are. Accept yourself where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But still push yourself to be better.
Yes. Once you get that down, go full-fledged into relentless.
I want to make sure that we understand here. There is a fine line between accepting and loving yourself where you are and all that woo-woo stuff, and then wanting to do better.
And putting your feet
and wanting
on
to be better. And wanting to push yourself. And wanting to achieve higher goals. And wanting to improve your life and take your life to the next level. Appreciate who you are, but don't be content if you're not where you want to be. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop.
I was about to say boom, and now I'm like, dang it. Could have all said it at one time. Yeah.
You should have said it, Courtney.
And that's it. Yeah. That's
great episode, guys. Great thoughts. Great thoughts. Man. Remember to like and share this podcast. Hashtag.
Oh, yes. Hashtag Force for Growth, and like and share for your chance to win Tony and Sage Robbins' Ultimate Relationship Program, a $200 value that will change your relationship, whether you're single, you are not, you whatever box you fit in. This will help. And you got to share it, because Michelle and I will be sharing it, and we're trying to win it too.
I was about to say, and when you win it, once you go through it, let me borrow it. You don't qualify to win it, and I want it.
Oh, good episode, guys. And we'll be back on Wednesday. Remember to visit forceforgrowth.com. Subscribe to the audio version of the podcast. Don't ever miss an episode. We're everywhere, not just Facebook, not just YouTube.
Yes.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Visit forceforgrowth.com for more information.
Yes.
Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.